Here's what's coming up on today's show.
What a great place to be in. What a wonderful thing to be able to say to yourself is that I could quit today if I wanted to, and I can achieve my financial goals.
Welcome to the How Money Works podcast with Craig and Jennifer Moser of Maestro Wealth Advisors, serving you throughout the Triad of North Carolina for more than 30 years.
Welcome into How Money Works with the team from Maestro Wealth Advisors. We're here to talk investing, finance, retirement, and investing like a genius is the conversation this week on the show. So let's get into the first one, guys, an IRA withdrawals. Doing these prematurely, usually not a good idea, right? Is this kind of a last resort effort here? What's the deal?
Well, it's certainly not the first resort. I will tell you, I see it a lot. It baffles the imagination. People come to me. I'm a certified financial planner. This is what I do, and they say, I'll give you a real example. I had a client, had being the key word, and he said, I want to go buy a new house, and I'm like, okay. And he said, so I found a great deal on this and a beach and a lake property at the same time. And I'm like, oh, okay, because I know how much money he has put away and how close he is to retirement. And so naturally, he says, I want to take it out of the only accounts that he really had any money in, which were his IRAs with us. And I said, well, here's what that will cost. And I mean, it was like $300,000 or $400,000. And at first he said, well, I can get it back in there in 60 days. And I said, I doubt that. I doubt you're going to be able to do it. But give it a shot if you want, but you probably can't. And sure enough, I was right. So all of that money came out. This person was under 59 and a half. And guess what? Right off the bat, $35,000 penalty. There's a 10% penalty if you pull that money out under 59 and a half, unless you're over the age of 55 and there's some terminating factors and stuff like that. But the rule basically says if you're 59 and a half or younger, or younger than 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty on top of the taxes.
And just think about it. Really, I ran the numbers. I mean, if you're at a 22% federal tax bracket, and let's just say 5% North Carolina, for every $10,000 you withdraw, you're going to take 27% off the table, go right off to the IRS in North Carolina or Virginia. You get the difference. And then, like you said, if you're younger than 59 and a half and other extenuating circumstances, you're basically getting 63 cents on every dollar that you take out. That's a big hit.
And more than what the cost of a mortgage would have been,
right,
by a long shot. So, it's unfortunately, people save a lot in retirement accounts. That seems, well, it's not unfortunate, but that's where most of the money is. And so when you say, I need some money, that's going to be the place that you go, unless you have built other places that you have investments at. So outside investments, money in the bank, those types of things. Be careful with that. But the premature IRA withdrawals is pretty brutal when you go to take that money out. Just figure $100,000. Mm-hmm. Right off the bat, it costs you $10,000 for a penalty. And then if you're in a 27% tax bracket, it's $27,000. I mean, how much do you get to keep when it's $37,000? I mean, it's not a good deal. So that's not a place for anything other than what it's designed for, which is retirement. To use that money then.
Okay. All right. So certainly some good information there. What about spending too much in our peak earning years, right? So we get to 50.
That's spending creep, right?
Right.
Spending creep.
You get to 50 and maybe you're, hopefully you're making the best money you've ever had. Hopefully the kids are off the payroll, right? You got, a lot of good things going in that direction, but you also kind of go, hey, I want this and I can afford it, so I'm going to get it.
You want me to start on this?
Sure.
Yeah,
so once the kids leave, and you can actually see where retirement might be in your future, my description of that is the sprint to the end. We used to run these little 5 in a couple of 10Ks. She'd always beat me in the hills because I couldn't get up the hills. My back hurt. And I catch her in the straightaways. But think about it this way. You've got more money than you've ever had. You've lived on less, perhaps, because of kids and paying for a house and education, whatever it costs. And then all of a sudden there's extra money. So you can either consume it or you can make darn sure that your goals are satisfied before you go out and eat every night and live the life.
Right.
The whole idea is to get enough back so when you stop working, no longer are employed, then you're going to have enough to live on for maybe 20 or 30 years. I say it a lot, but I mean it. If you quit at 60 or 65 or 70, somewhere in there, how long are you going to live? So what do? Our job is to help you to plan. It's not to just invest money and that type of stuff, but to actually look at what it's going to look like in the future. So how do we do this? We ask you for what a goal for income will be when you quit. We look at what you're currently saving. We look at what you've already got back, and then we start to do very complex and very comprehensive projections on how that's going to look under multiple scenarios, not just your best case. The things that most people can't pick up are going to be how much taxes are going to cost me, or what is inflation going to hit me at, or what is a required minimum distribution going to look like when it kicks out at 73, 4, or 5, somewhere in that age bracket. There's no way to know unless you have very good, sophisticated software. We pay an inordinate amount for that stuff, and so our stuff is pretty good. So you take a look at it in the future, but if you're spending all that you make, let's say that you were saving $10,000 into your retirement 10 years ago, and you haven't upped that number, you may be behind. So then once you've done your planning and analysis, you go, oh, I'm well where I need to be. I'm saving enough. But if you look at it and go, it's going to take more to get me to the end, then what you should really do is take a look at that and be sure that you're not consuming everything just because you have it. You need to just focus on, your end goal, which will be, I'm almost going to retire here in the next, say, 15 years. How much can I have back to have a great life when I quit working every day?
And you need to think, too, that when you do retire and you're going to have those 20 to 30 years, a lot of things can happen that you haven't contemplated. And usually those things could impact your nest egg in your retirement negatively. As an example, a lot of legislative changes. Are we going to continue with the existing Social Security system? Are they going to potentially penalize, these savers who have invested in their life and put money back, and do some kind of means testing so then others can share the wealth, so to speak. So you really need to think about that. And that's hard to build in, and it's hard to fathom, especially when you're saving money and you see this big pile of money. What you probably want to look at is, why don't you take your salary that you've earned over the last 30 to 40 years and multiply it and see how much that pool of money is. And then how much have you saved for the second half of your life? I think you'd be surprised that you probably have consumed a lot more than what you're going to have saved to keep you in your lifestyle for the remainder of your life.
Let's talk a little bit about tuition. We won't go too crazy, but look, a lot of families have realized over the last few years that, maybe they wish they had approached college a different way. It's gotten completely out of control. And so some of the prices and stuff. So, maybe if you're in that position where you're not quite there yet, thinking about this, learning from others could be a good way to save yourself a lot of money and still get a quality education.
I'm going to say I think we came from a generation, at least my side, Craig hasn't had a different upbringing, but that you go to a 4-year university, you get your degree, and then you're on your own. Craig's generation, or his side of the family, basically says you get out of high school and it's up to you to put yourself through college. Yep. But again, I think the traditional thought was it's a 4-year college that you're going to go to and you get a degree. I'm seeing more and more people, Craig, do they're going to do advanced education in high school to get those college credits. Yep. They're going to live at home and do an associate's degree in the community college, saving that money, doing the same, core basic classes, and then transferring and specializing in an occupation or a educational venue. Right. So I'm seeing more and more people do that and being more smart with those tuition dollars, because it's so expensive. College is so expensive, and it's one thing that you need to really think about. There's other ways to pay for it too. You can do grants and financial aid.
Yep. So I see it different. Your children say, I want to go to, XYZ college. And it's like, okay, that happens to be private. If you have the money to pay it and are okay paying it, okay, that's fine. But if you're looking at it and going, daggum, they want to go to this expensive school and I don't have the money to do it. And maybe they don't exactly have the grades, that you think would say, okay, I'm paying for this big education. And the other side of it is, are you trying hard enough to get, for the price I'm paying? I think most people should go to the college in the state that you're in, the college, like the UNCs and that type
state
of
run.
Yeah. At least for undergraduate. Smarter is still to do the community colleges, for the first 2 years if you haven't really knocked the cover off the ball. So at the end of it, the idea is to get a degree and then maybe, do something advanced, because that's kind of where the stuff is. The other side of it is, I'm speaking to the kids now, go to school for something that you can actually get a job for. Get a degree in something that when you walk out of the door, guess what? Somebody would hire me.
And there's nothing wrong with trade schools. I mean, there are quite a few people that we know have done very well in trade.
But parents, if you have to borrow a lot of money to send your kid to school, is that the best move? Because you have to put it all into context. Am I going to quit pretty soon? How much money do I have to live on? I have a commitment to my kids, but I've got to make sure that I'm not an old poor person, at a later date. So making sure that you take advantage of what's out there. And at least in North Carolina, we've got a great community college system, and we have a great state-supported university system where you can go way past bachelor's and get fabulous degrees. So I think you need to look at it and say, here are the choices that you have. That's what you can choose from, rather than, trying to pick the expensive one that you really can't afford.
What about retiring too early, Craig?
Yeah, happens a lot. I hate my job. I don't.
I was going to say, wait a second.
But I hear it a lot. And it's like, as soon as I get to 62 or 65 or whatever it is, I'm out of here. And it's like, well, I'm sorry that you don't like where you work. I mean that. But the other side of it is, are you able to quit working and instead live off of what's coming in? So what's coming in? Usually people put Social Security in their planning. I hear sometimes, well, they're not going to pay me. They're going to pay you. I mean, you put the money in the system and people are paying it all the time. Something might change, but you're going to get Social Security unless something dramatic changes in this country. So look at that and say, is that enough to live on? For the Mosers, it's not. The Social Security checks that they say that we're going to get.
And they never were designed to
be
that.
the only thing. Mm-hmm. So then, have you saved enough money to give you the lifestyle that you want? So I'm going to say this, and it's been said 100 million times, but retirement is not an age. It's a dollar amount. Do you have enough to support the lifestyle that you want once you say goodbye to your employer? So right now you're working somewhere, you get your checks, you do your thing, hopefully you save in your retirement accounts, you're paying down the house and getting rid of the mortgage. But at the end of the day, how do you translate all of the stuff that you're doing now into a retirement income? So you have to measure. You have to look at, in my opinion, can I make this stuff go at what I want for a long period of time? And if the answer ends up being no, I can't, then you've got to decide how you're going to approach it. Don't quit anyway. And then here you are 80 or 82 years old. And guess what? I ran out of the money I saved.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else but Social Security. That would be the pits. So what you really need to do is let us measure for you. Let's take a look. You say, this is what I want. And then we will run those numbers, your numbers for you, and let you see in advance what that's going to look like under various situations. Once you have that in your back pocket and you understand the data, then you can make good decisions. If it shows up that, hey, This is a slam dunk. I can go right now. It doesn't matter whether I retire early or later on. What a great place to be in. What a wonderful thing to be able to say to yourself is that I could quit today if I wanted to, and I can achieve my financial goals. But what if the conversation's the other thing and you have never really looked at the impact of inflation on your future, at what it's going to cost you to pull money out of accounts for taxes, at what it's going to do for your Medicare Part B expenses, IRMA, if you know what that is. Take a look at this stuff in advance and make sure that we've got our arms around what the most potential probability of success is going to be.
Yeah.
What about the mistakes of ignoring opportunities for Roth IRAs
Well,
and just putting everything into the pre-tax?
Well, it's very easy to do the pre-tax. Back when I was growing up, there was a commercial from Fram oil filters that said, you can pay me now or you can pay me later, meaning that the things you do up front will prevent the cost later. So let's take a look at it a different way. While you're earning, you can afford to pay your taxes, right? Because you're earning a check and you pay your bills and, they give you what's left because you've already paid your taxes. What if you saved in a Roth 401k? What if you put money in something that you took after-tax money from? It's not a sin, Put it in there and let it cook and boil and eventually get great big. It would be so nice to be able to pull your retirement dollars out and not have to pay the income taxes on it, because guess what? We have no clue what they're going to charge us in the future for taxes.
Nope.
Our country owes right now over $35 trillion. We're running about a $2 trillion deficit, which means they're spending $2 trillion more than what they're taking in taxes right now today. How could you possibly think they won't raise taxes in the future? I'm sorry to just say that, but the tax rates are pretty low right now. They started in about 2017, and they've been really low. The tax schedule that we have right now is set to sunset or stop at the end of 2025 already. So they're going to change the tax code, and it's not for the better for most people already. But if they need money and then you have your future and you're taking money out of your retirement account and they say, guess what? We're raising that tax rate and you have zero control over it. You would have wished that you paid a little bit up front so that when you take money out in your Roth 401k or Roth IRA, that there was no tax on it. I just can't say this. People can convert later. I mean, you can do that, but it's paying taxes, and we're running out of time to build a real good strategy, because what's happening is we've got this year, what's left of it, and all of next year to really do any conversions in a tax schedule that we actually know.
And then there's a double whammy, Craig, of a husband and wife both contributing to that pre-tax account, and that's really where they've put most of their money. And then when a spouse passes, all of a sudden now you've got a single taxpayer with a higher threshold, or a lower threshold of when they hit those tax consequences. So it could really devastate a retirement by not doing it correctly. But there is still time, but you have to talk with a financial advisor, one who knows how to calculate and look at that and do this tax planning. There's a couple of other mistakes that people have made. What about, not maximizing the free money side? And I say free money being the match at the employer, and also these HSAs, which is can be a beautiful thing.
I'll let you talk about the HSA, but if you're not putting in enough money to get the full match at your employer, you're kind of shortchanging yourself. I mean, if somebody's matching your salary, up to your salary, maybe 4%, and you're putting enough in to where you get 1 or 2%, you're leaving money on the table. That is the easiest money that you'll ever make, because it's just going to be put in there. It doesn't have to be a return. And so when you're saving, you need to take a look at that. The other side of it is, after that, you've got to decide what the best choice is for how you invest your money. So do I save more in the Roth after that? Should I continue to put it into pre-tax? And that all comes out in analysis. When you look at your future and say, what is it going to cost me? When you look at your future and say, what are taxes going to cost me? And now you've ran the numbers. It's important, and we really encourage you to do that. We're rolling into the end of the year right now, and so a lot of people are thinking about this as they're setting new things for next year. Please take a look at that and make sure that you're saving enough to at least get your full match from your employer.
And just remember, on your employer deferral, you can do Roth money. The match is always going to be pre-tax. So you can do that Roth component with the money that you put in. Finally, the HSAs. And HSAs are a health savings account, different than the flex spending account. HSAs are afforded to individuals and families that have a high deductible medical plan. And basically, you get an immediate tax deduction in the year that you contribute, and then it grows tax deferred. You use those expenses. You can use them immediately for medical costs, or you can defer those and wait and build up this pot of money that you can use in retirement. So as you are drawing funds out for your lifestyle and Medicare premiums and whatever you need for healthcare, because healthcare is going to be $250 to $350 estimated per couple when you retire. You've got that nest egg that you can pull out that won't impact your tax line. So maximize that HSA and see if that's available for you.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast today. If you have any questions about what we've discussed, remember, you can get a complimentary financial review with the team at Maestro Wealth Advisors by calling 336-448-1086 or go online to howmoneyworksradio.com for other great resources and ways to reach the team. You can also check the show notes of today's episode for our contact information as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all the most popular apps. For Craig and Jennifer Moser, I'm Mark Killian. We'll talk to you next time on the How Money Works podcast.
Craig Moser is a financial advisor and certified financial planner. Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through Avantax Affiliated Insurance Agency.